Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to map out a truly compassionate, systemic view of neurodiverse relationships, specifically relationships where one partner has ADHD. We're drawing all of this from the fascinating Avocado Manifesto. It's this incredible guide that brilliantly breaks down the dynamics between partners. It really shows us two different worlds trying to understand each other. So we're going to explore these powerful concepts step by step. Let's get right into it.
All right, let's dive right in by confronting what is arguably the most common and honestly the most exhausting question couples ask during a fight. Who is to blame? It's a completely logical human reflex, right? When something hurts, we instantly want to know who we can hold responsible.
But here's the thing. The answer to that question of blame, it's no one. Literally no one. You have to reframe this entirely. You aren't actually fighting each other. You're clashing over a fundamental difference that neither of you chose. You basically have two completely different nervous systems operating under one roof. One system is desperately seeking peace and predictability, while the other is processing stimuli completely unfiltered, basically with the volume cranked up to 10.
This really requires us to take a systemic, bird's-eye view. If you just keep looking for a perpetrator or a victim, you're just going to get stuck in the mud. The real question isn't about who is to blame, but rather, what patterns are being passed down? What old scripts, maybe even from childhood, are playing out in your kitchen right now, and who's carrying them? Where do you actually fit into all of this?
And this brings us to a really interesting, kind of quirky, but totally spot-on metaphor. The avocado. It sounds a bit funny, but it hits the nail right on the head. Think about it. An avocado looks exactly the same on the outside every single day, right? But you never actually know what you'll find inside until you open it. Sometimes it's perfectly soft, other times it's rock hard. This perfectly captures the unpredictable lived experience for both people. It's true for the non-ADHD partner who is tentatively opening the avocado, but it's equally true for the ADHD partner who actually is the avocado. They often wake up not even knowing what their own internal weather forecast is going to be that day.
Section 1. Perspective 1. The silent accounting. Let's focus in on the unseen reality of the non-ADHD partner, often respectfully called the other in this dynamic. This is the person who looks like the stable, flexible anchor from the outside.
Because this partner is constantly adapting to keep the peace and filling in the gaps, they unconsciously start keeping this silent accounting of all their sacrifices. But listen closely, because this is crucial. The most dangerous part isn't actually that you're counting. The absolute most dangerous thing is forbidding yourself from counting, because you know your partner can't help it, while secretly continuing to tally it all up anyway. That swallowed resentment, it always finds a destructive way out eventually. We really need to make a distinction here, because it can literally make or break a relationship. We need to look at the difference between love and sacrifice. Love involves giving, sure, but it leaves you whole afterward. You feel warmth, you feel fulfilled. Sacrifice, on the other hand, well, it might look like love from the outside, but it slowly drains you. If you are constantly giving and you find yourself turning into the emotional shock absorber of the relationship, just waiting for a crumb of recognition, well, that's not love anymore. That is self-loss.
So if you're sitting there wondering if maybe you've crossed that line into sacrifice, there's 7 systemic signals of self-loss to look out for. Does your agenda constantly react to their mood? Are you only ever talking about them and their challenges? Have you lost touch with your own desires? Does resting actually feel unsafe because you're just waiting for the next unexpected storm? Going through these signals can really help you figure out if your relationship's gravity is pulling way too heavily around just one person, causing you to lose your own center.
What we're fundamentally looking at here is an invisible form of grief. The non-ADHD partner is grieving. They are mourning the effortless relationship they expected to have. And what's so incredibly important to understand is that mourning a missed expectation doesn't mean you're blaming your partner for it not existing. It's totally okay to feel that way. It's just grief, plain and simple, without an enemy.
Moving on to Section 2, Perspective 2, the mask and the carrier. Now that we've illuminated one side, let's pivot. We're going to mirror that exact same dignity and seriousness for the partner with ADHD or the carrier. We're going to dive right into their internal, often very chaotic reality.
Because sitting right across that kitchen table is an equal and profound grief. The ADHD partner is also mourning. They're mourning an unlived life. They're mourning years of misunderstandings. They're dealing with this constant, nagging internal voice whispering that they failed yet again and carrying the deep, systemic shame that comes right along with it.
This actually explains why a harsh or blunt sentence isn't necessarily a lack of love at all. It's really just a lack of packaging time. You see, in an ADHD brain, there might be 10 different rushing thoughts and several panic reactions all colliding at the exact same moment, with zero filter. It's like manually operating a dam. What comes out is just the shortest route, painfully unfiltered, and it's usually the thing they themselves regret the absolute most just a half-second later.
This leads us to the real tragedy of the mask. Coworkers and friends often see someone who functions perfectly fine, but what they don't see is the immense, constant regulation it takes. The ADHD partner uses basically all of their available energy to appear quote-unquote normal to the outside world. And the sad consequence? The moment they walk through the door into their safe haven, the mask drops, and their partner gets the completely exhausted, unfiltered, crashing version of them. So what feels like coldness to one partner is, ironically, the ultimate proof of trust for the other. They finally feel safe enough to just land.
Furthermore, there's something you really have to understand about the aftermath of an outburst. When the ADHD partner goes completely silent and withdraws, it is very rarely indifference or coldness. Most of the time, it's this profound, isolating shame. And shame just has no words. The judgment they are putting on themselves in that moment is so massive, it literally physically paralyzes their ability to find the right words or reconnect.
Okay, Section 3, Synthesis, Explanation versus Excuse. Let's dig into the actual mechanics of what happens when these two realities collide. Why does this break both partners down, and how can we structurally fix it?
This right here is the exact flashpoint where conflicts spiral totally out of control. Something goes wrong, and the ADHD partner immediately starts explaining what was happening inside their head. They're speaking process language in a desperate attempt to just be understood. But the non-ADHD partner? In that moment, they are only feeling the pain of what just happened. They're speaking affect language. Because one is explaining the inner process while the other is still reeling from the impact, the clinical neurological explanation suddenly sounds like a super cheap excuse. They're both right, but honestly, they both lose the conversation.
So, to break this destructive cycle, we have to use what's called the key of order. The rule is incredibly simple, but absolutely life-changing. Step 1, you must acknowledge the emotional impact your action had on the other person. You have to do this before Step 2, which is explaining the neurological process behind it. The impact always comes first. The source material puts this beautifully. Recognition opens the ear. Explanation without recognition closes it. Using the exact same words, but just flipping the order can literally transform a marriage. By making sure emotional recognition happens before any logical defense starts, you guarantee that your partner actually feels heard. It's a total game changer. Section 4. Architecture, boundaries without hardening. Let's look at how the non-ADHD partner can protect themselves and set clear boundaries without building up a massive wall of resentment. This concept is wonderfully described as the constitution of the boundary. It brilliantly separates two very different things. On one hand, you completely and lovingly accept who someone is on a neurobiological level. But at the same time, and this is the flip side, you no longer automatically accept what their behavior structurally costs you. The first part, that's pure love. The second part, that's absolutely necessary self-respect. To make sure you're staying on that narrow path between love and sacrifice, you can test your boundaries using these 3 criteria. Whenever you're adapting, ask yourself, 1. Do I stay whole doing this? 2. Is my partner making a visible effort to move on their end? And 3. Can I actually give this without building up resentment? Doing this ensures you maintain your own gravity in the household, so the whole system stops orbiting solely around the unpredictability of ADHD.
And that brings us to a really fundamental truth. Ultimately, an explanation of neurodiversity or a medical diagnosis is never a free pass for harmful behavior. As the text powerfully points out, explaining is only the first half of maturity. The second half is taking visible, active responsibility for the impact you have on your partner. If you just stop at the explanation, you haven't done half the work, you've done no work at all.
To wrap up our explainer today, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to chew on tonight. Instead of exhausting yourselves trying to figure out who is to blame, ask yourselves, what inherited patterns are echoing in your kitchen right now? And, even more importantly, who has the courage to step off that cycle first? Thanks so much for joining us, and keep exploring.